So I'm graduating high school tomorrow, and it kind of doesn't even feel real to me. For so long, I've always thought that I've had so much time, and just I've thought I had the privilege of just staying home and relaxing and just thinking that, oh, maybe next year I'll have more time. But my time is up, and I can say seldom that I use my time wisely, but I feel like my deepest regret before graduating is just not being able to truly enjoy like my youth. I think I took my youth too seriously, and I feel like for all of those people who are on social media platforms and do happen to come across motivational videos, all I want you to do is just to be careful. Be very, very careful when you see those videos. I saw this thing online where it says successful people wouldn't give out what it takes to be successful, or else the market would be oversaturated. Successful people, when they figure it out in their brain, they don't tell anybody. So, if that's the case, what do you think those motivational videos are trying to do to you? They're not trying to motivate you, but I think they're trying to burn you out. This is a very bold statement by me, but I think it's so evident. And I mean this in the sense that it pushes you to wake up earlier, which obviously deprives you of sleep. And sleep is one of the key factors you need when you're a young man or a woman. And not only that, it pushes you to just, I understand that you need to push yourself like past what is asked to be extraordinary. I understand that. But when you don't allow yourself to rest and catch up mentally, I think that's when you really start to lose just yourself. Obviously, you might think that I'm stupid just because you've seen how it has improved you, but how has it improved you long term? When you're not without those motivational videos and it's just you and you don't remember any of that stuff, how do you feel? Do you feel happy and joyful? Do you feel like you're enjoying your life and that you can be present in the moment without feeling like you're a failure just because you haven't achieved what somebody else has that you saw online? Can you feel comfortable in your own skin? And can you feel good even when performing bad after something that means so much to you? For so many years in my high school career, I didn't know how to truly feel whenever something went wrong. When something went wrong, I always blamed myself, and I thought that I wasn't good enough. I always took it upon myself to say that I wasn't working hard enough and that I was never dedicated enough. But now that I look back on it, I was so dedicated. Almost to the point where I was too dedicated. To the point where I stopped talking to people who meant something to me, and I stopped spending time with the ones who cared about me. I understand there's sacrifices that needs to be made, but if you don't need to make it, why do it? It's pushed so hard in the agenda of social media, and it damages me every time I see one of those videos. Because what they do is they fire you up short term, but long term, you're gonna run out of gas. And then that cycle's gonna keep repeating and repeating and repeating. And guess what? All those people that were once once so motivated that I was around, all those people ended up burning out and quitting. Why? Because they realized that it wasn't for them and they didn't want to live like that anymore. They were tired of the hoax motivational speeches and just the tired, or just, they were just tired of the stupid, dumb habits that didn't even help them long term. What I'm saying and I'm trying to get at is that just no matter how amazing you want to be in life, going that way of just pushing your way through the wall isn't gonna work. I think it takes time, and in a way, if you're not ready, the universe will give you signs. And if you don't listen to those signs, and you continue to push, and you continue to knock on the door, you kind of realize that nothing's working. Because sometimes when you water a flower so much, it'll die. When you water any plant too much, it'll die, and that's what I did throughout high school. I always felt like I was behind, so then I would water the absolute life out of my plant. Not literally, but I would just try and do every single good thing and cut out every single bad thing. And that led to me losing myself. You know, for so many years, I just wanted to show my parents and prove to myself that, like, what I'm doing is worth it and that, like, I can make something out of my life. But I want to tell you guys to not be in such a rush. Because when you're in such a rush to grow up, but then you actually do start to grow up, you realize that, like, you wish you were young. No matter how you look at it, you always wish you were younger than you are today. And just realize that greatness doesn't have a time limit. It's always going to be there. You don't have to reach it at a certain age just to be viewed as a successful person in any way. I think that it's so negative and damaging to a person's mind to see, like, all these amazing achievements by young kids, but never show, like, the truth behind it. Yes, a kid might have signed a professional contract, but who were his connections, right? It's not just because he trained hard, it's because he was connected in the right place. It's because he was born into the right environment. And you would think, oh, but I've seen success stories of these kids who made it out the mud and who are now up here. Okay? And if success is your only thing pushing you in life, I think you need to step back and start to question what you really want and think if it's really going to be important in a couple years. You can view me as silly and maybe I don't have it together, which you could be right, but throughout my years of high school, I've kind of learned that, like, less is more, and you should always take the quality over quantity. When you try and do so much to achieve something, you start to learn that progress isn't linear. In school, it might be linear because if you study harder, you always get a better grade, no matter what. You know, if you study for longer and you're focused more of the period of the time, you're going to receive a better grade. So you think, what if I put the same effort I'm putting in 8 hours a day, 5 times a week? And if you're doing something for that long, it's no coincidence that it'll turn into a habit. And since we were about 5 years old, 6 years old, we've kind of grasped the concept of just putting in more work to get more out of it. But now as we're older, we start to realize that, and we start to maybe get a little discouraged because no matter how much work we seem to put in, we can't just attain that thing we want tomorrow. And for so many years, we've been led on this path that, we have to put in more work and we have to work harder and harder and harder just to get something we want. I think that's wrong. Schools never push this agenda, but they're hardwiring us into becoming normal. Not normal in the sense that I'm saying everybody else is trash and you're unique. I'm just saying normal in the sense that you start to lose your complexity of thought. You start to not question what's around you and the credibility of what's in front of you, and you just start to accept. You stop being complicated and you stop having disagreements, and you just agree to make your life easier. But I think that there's no bigger shame than just hiding and being afraid. Because throughout my high school career, I was always afraid. Whether it was opinions of other people or a bad grade, fear always pushed the agenda that I needed to work harder. But, as I've learned and as I've started to throw myself in the fire of going against the tide and realizing that all these things in my head only exist in my head. Because in the real world, nobody thinks about that sort of stuff. Nobody. It's not even brought up in any way. People don't really care as you thought they did. And those grades that you tried so hard to get don't even matter too much. What really matters is just your ability to see what will bring you clarity in life. I feel like everything nowadays is so pushed on fear, and it's going to continue to be like that in your life. Why do you think so many people who work corporate jobs are forced to stay there? Because they have a family and they can't afford to fail. They can't afford to leave because they don't want to be, looked at as outcasts or failing fathers or anything like that. It's the opinions that always stop you from doing what you really want to do. So I'm going to tell you this right now. And you could either forget it, like most of the content you consume throughout the day, or you could actually take this with a grain of salt and maybe apply it a little bit to your life. But the people around you truly don't care about you. And listening to their opinions will almost always make you worse. I'm not saying the people who care about you, like your family and all that, but the people around you. Because they don't truly know you. They only know surface level you. They don't know what's underneath the skin. They don't know the complexity of your thoughts and just the amazing qualities you have. Because let's be honest, everyone deserves the world. But life isn't that easy, right? I feel like everybody deserves for their story to be told and for it to be heard around the world. because I know so many great people with so many amazing stories to tell, but unfortunately they just never get the chance to hear it. And instead of hearing amazing stories about people who achieve great things, we hear propaganda in the news. If we start to get talking about what's wrong with our world, and that's another big issue, which is just focusing on what's wrong. When's the last time we focused on what's right? When's the last time we were pushed to truly show gratitude and appreciation of our situation, no matter how good or bad it was? When's the last time we were taught that in education? Spoiler alert, we weren't. Maybe you had those weird guru teachers who meditated. They told you to be grateful. But for the most part, it was always hard pushed content. So after you get out of high school, or maybe you're in high school right now, no matter what you do, your brain's going to be taught to always believe that your hard work will always pay off. If that's the case, why do the hardest people, or the hardest working people in the world work the worst jobs? Why? If that was the case, shouldn't the construction worker who works 20 hours a day for like 5 days a week, shouldn't they be getting paid the most? Nope. Who gets paid the most? Those CEOs. And you could say they worked hard all they want, but that's not my point. My point is that hard work will only get you so far. So you might ask, how do I have success in the next stage of my life? How would I do this then, since you're so smart? I don't know. I don't. And I think the answer's for you to figure out. Don't take your problems to the internet. Take it to yourself. Because nobody knows you better than you. You spend the most time with yourself. You see how you interact with other people. So who better to coach yourself throughout this era of life and this challenge than you? Trust yourself. Always. If I were to be put in a room of 100 people and, they would quiz me over, let's say, soccer, I would trust myself to be the smartest in that room. Why? Because I know myself, or I know that topic the most, right? So obviously I would trust myself. So why don't you ever trust yourself? Why do you take other people's word over yours? No matter how right it feels in your mind, you still sometimes choose to believe other people's because it feels good to you. Because you take for granted the perspective and the time you spend with yourself, and you neglect what's really right and wrong in your life for what feels good or what doesn't. If you really want to be successful and you want to have stability in your life, you want to be as stable as a rock like Jesus, I suggest you start worrying about your own problems and fixing it. Not asking or doing it the popular way or the way you see it done the most, but the way that works for you. And, it can be easy to copy these things on social media that you see of just what looks appealing and what might have benefits for you and what might change your life. But I think the best way to change your life and the best way to transform it is just by living it, by living in the present moment. Because by doing that, you learn to appreciate just everything you have. For so many of the years, I was so ungrateful and I always wanted more. But when I started to appreciate what I had, I found so much more joy in my life because I realized that I have so much to be thankful for. I don't often like comparing myself to others, but when I think of those kids who have so much less than me but are able to enjoy their life so much more, it makes me realize that these material possessions never really made me rich. No matter how much money I had in my bank account, I'll never be as rich as them, nor will I ever be as rich as I was when I was a kid riding bikes with my friends, just having fun, with no worries in the world. And from now, that's how I'm gonna try and live my life. Because I'd be a hypocrite if I'm not taking my own advice. You think, oh, aren't you a hypocrite by telling us to not take your advice? But I'm telling you right now is just to not think like that and just to not overthink it. Simply sit with that problem you have, or just sit with the issue you have in your life, and soon you'll start to see, like, just what it really is and the truth. It still feels so surreal that I'm graduating tomorrow, but when this jar is removed, I'm gonna jump right out. No matter how bad it may hurt, you have to be willing to take some pain along the way. If you stayed to the end, I just want to say thank you. And if you do happen to watch these videos consistently, I just want to say I appreciate just listening to me and what I have to say. Whenever I started this channel, I wanted to not do it for the views and the money or anything like that. Obviously, like everybody says that, but like I truly wanted to help you. Because I'm not doing this to coach you through anything. I'm just doing this to provide a little bit of clarity for you. Because when I was young, stressing about sports all the time, I always wanted somebody to be there for me to just tell me what I was doing wrong. Just to say, if I had somebody right now who could help me, like maybe think in a different way, and just give me a little bit of freedom from my thoughts, that would be like the best thing I can ask for. Yeah, unfortunately that never came, but I never sought it out. I was always kind of afraid to ask, but I kind of realized that I turned into the person I needed, or I turned into the person I needed the most. And I think that's the biggest blessing I could have ever received in my life. Because now I don't really stress over small problems like that. And, whatever I am struggling in my life, I can always think back to a lesson in the past that I've learned and that I can apply to now. Obviously, you can't use the same answers on a different test, but you can learn things from different tests that you can use on this one, right? There's so many different ways to view your life, but I think the best way to view it is just with your own. It kind of is hard to graduate because you start to feel all these emotions. The strongest one for me has always been nostalgia. But I think nostalgia just means you're in a period where you're living a life that you know is worth living. You're ending something that you appreciated so much. And I just thank Jesus every day that I was able to finish high school because I had a couple classmates who took their own life. One of them in my grade, and he's not going to be able to walk the stage. May he rest in peace. But I just thank Jesus every day that I'm alive and I get to learn. And all those small problems you stress about, whether it be money, college, or anything, none of that'll matter when you die. The only thing that'll truly matter is just how you chose to live each day. Did you wake up and choose to be appreciative? Or did you wake up and choose to complain about everything and just only pay attention to the wrong in the world? Don't get me wrong, it's so hard to feel those emotions that everything is crashing down on you. But it's very hard to also be appreciative. So choose your heart. I'm starting to learn that it's also hard to be like those people that you see in a good mood every day. It's hard to do that. Obviously they have things going on in their life too, but they choose to be in a good mood. Why? Because they know that, like, at the end of the day, being in a good mood will always take them farther than just being so negative all the time. It's so easy to get down on yourself. It's so easy. Like, it's the easiest thing in the world to just tell yourself that you're not good enough. But, a real one would tell yourself that, it's not good enough right now, but it will be good enough soon. It's not only hard to be sad, and it feels horrible, don't get me wrong, but it's also hard to choose to be happy. And when you make that choice, and when you start to make that outward push and apply those risks that you've been wanting to take, you start to see your life transform. I've kind of experienced that firsthand, that maybe I need to stop being in a shell and start taking risks, because how else will I learn in my life? I'm sure you have a goal you want to achieve that is once in a lifetime, because truly you only live once. Whatever you want to do after high school, no matter how old you are watching this video, or no matter what you want to do after your education, or no matter what you want to do right now, I'm telling you that if you have even the smallest desire to do it, go for it. Because at the end of the day, when else will you ever get this opportunity to chase something so extraordinary that you're scared of doing it? Chase something so extraordinary that only few people are really able to do it. What better privilege than doing something so rare that you're looked at like you're crazy by wanting to achieve it? I'm telling you, the crazy people are always the right one. And, in order to be successful, you gotta be a little crazy up here. You can't be willing to just be so persuaded by other people's opinions and just always going the way of structurally accepted type of way. But just the way that you see yourself on. I feel like I'm kind of losing it. It's kind of late, but my last message to you before I step on that stage tomorrow is just to truly try and enjoy it. Because no matter how you look at your life, like looking back on it, there was no way I could truly take all the enjoyment and not feel any nostalgia or regret about the past, no matter what. But, as you wake up today or tomorrow, just try and enjoy it to the best you can.